Welcome to segment 1 of the Advanced Placement European History webcast. Our goal here, a little bit of fun, a little bit of information, and most importantly, we're going to pass that test, aren't we? The European history course begins right around 1450. But for some reason, most teachers start with Greece 1,500 years before, 2,000, 3,000, who really knows when Greece was around? So here's your little introduction, a brief glance at the history of Europe before 1450. Probably European history begins when they steal some ideas from Egypt and the Middle East, but we don't really know for certain because we don't know much for certain. But the Greeks definitely had some characteristics they passed on. Their ideal, because they never really got there, but it was an ideal of democracy. They thought people should have an influence on government. The Greeks really like pretty things. They like pretty pictures, pretty buildings, and pretty sculptures. And they passed that love for beauty on to the future of Western civilization. It's one reason we like pretty things. But the Greeks were conquered by the Romans. And people say that. I think the Greeks actually moved to Rome and conquered Rome. They just changed the name. Because Rome is so much like Greece. Same gods, same architecture for the beginning. They even like democracy a bit until they become an empire. When they became an empire, they really got rolling. They used their huge amount of resources to stimulate engineering. They give Europe a desire for well-built, pretty buildings. They create fabulous law and legal systems that protect the rights of all people. And then they get crushed by the barbarians. So we should add a third group in here, the barbarians. The barbarians give us our sense of passion, our love for war, and a desire to have as much fun as possible with other people's money. It's good times. If you add the Greek love of beauty, the Roman love of structure and engineering, and the barbarians' love of passion and war, you get yourself a European right around the time of 1400. These Europeans around 1400 had also been shaped by more recent events. The Crusades had introduced them to nice things like soap and spices for their food like pepper, which they loved, and it had introduced them to a whole new segment of trade and people to trade with. I know the Crusades weren't really about that, but that was the results of the Crusades. It also allowed a lot more trade to be coming through Italy, which is why the Renaissance ends up starting in Italy. And I would be remiss if I did not speak about the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church so dominated Europe during the Middle Ages that Europe was not usually called Europe. It was called Christendom. If you had gone to Europe in the 1300s and said, "Hi, I'm excited to be in Europe," they would have said, "Where? You're in Christendom. We worship Christ here." The Catholic Church dominated everything. And then about 1300, the Catholic Church sort of fell apart. They split. They had a schism. And that schism divided the Catholics and divided the power structure of Europe so that the Catholic Church was ripe for corruption and disaster, which is exactly what befell them not long after the Renaissance begins. There's a situation right around 1450. Come on back. We'll see you for the Renaissance in Florence. Adios.